Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you the first DLC pack in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This first pack is called Pulse of the Ancients, and as the name probably suggests, everything that you unlock is more or less related to ancient technology and incorporating it more into your standard playset. Among the things they announced at the Nintendo Direct, you can unlock the Master Cycle as a weapon for Zelda, which is so cool that it really shouldn't be allowed in the main game, and sometimes the enemies even have a tough time keeping up with the Master Cycle, as well as a flail for Link, which is basically a pair of Guardian legs, and you can also unlock a battle-tested Guardian as a playable character. However, getting to those rewards is a little bit of a task, so I'm here to tell you if it's worth it to go through how to unlock those things. So first off, you have to go to the Royal Research Lab to get a whole new list of side quests. Now this is easier said than done because when you first boot up the game, you are told, yeah, go to the Royal Research Lab, but all that the game shows you is that there are more quests. And you can tell when something's a DLC quest because it'll say EX next to it, just like Breath of the Wild did. Unlike Breath of the Wild, where it tells you exactly where you need to go when you boot up the game, saying, hey, if you want to take on this EX quest, then go to this particular stable so you can read Tracy's journal. In this game, however, you're just told, go to the Royal Research Lab. So even though it took me a while to figure it out, what I eventually had to do was I eventually had to go into the section where it lists all the facilities, such as the military training camp and the blacksmith guild, and it was included at the very bottom called EX Royal Research Lab. Now, I don't know if you had to do some of those extra quests first or not. I'm not really sure about that. But the point is that it wasn't very clear that the research lab was an option in the menu as opposed to something that you had to unlock. Once you get there, Robbie and Pura tell you that if you help them enough with their research, then they'll give you additional rewards. A lot of times these rewards just end up either going on new quests or going to previous quests and looking for more materials. And these side quests give you additional rewards that weren't in the main game. So for example, you can earn, to name a few, to be able to purchase apples before a battle instead of just finding them on the battlefield. You can increase the effectiveness of each of your runes, the duration of your elemental rod attacks, but perhaps the most significant, giving Zelda the Master Cycle, Link the Flail, and unlocking the battle-tested Guardian as a playable character. However, because the side quests are laid out in a semi-linear flowchart manner, similar to games like Virtue's Last Reward and World's End Club, you don't get a lot of these rewards right away. And in fact, quite a lot of them take a fair bit of grinding to get to. I think if I were to count all of my playtime that it took me to 100% the list, I would say it probably took me close to 16 hours. So people that don't like grinding in a Hyrule Warriors game might be a little bit disappointed by this DLC pack, as you're going to have to work for it. The characters and the weapons aren't just going to be handed to you like they are in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. However, that being said, I think that it was definitely worth the wait, as they did a good job of allowing new quests in between the waiting to make it slightly easier as opposed to just replaying old maps. After you do one of the earliest side quests, you gain the ability to challenge vicious monsters, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. Vicious monsters are typically much harder than regular monsters, and your characters have to be a pretty high level to challenge them. They even have a new music track that goes along with them to show how epic they are, and there will usually be a funny little description at the top to give you a clue about what extra attributes the monster has. Like Unstoppable Shield, for example, means that the enemy's going to have added defense. Or if it's a powerhouse, then they might have additional attack. But you're not told that when you go into the battle, so you kind of have to just prepare for the worst and hope that you have the best cooked meal, or just upgrade your characters to a high enough level and just wail on them, like what I'm doing right now. Now, the extra music is really cool. You don't just get extra music for the monsters, you also get one for the Royal Lab for some of the additional quests. When you battle the Guardian, because you need to do a battle with the Guardian before you can unlock it, which is such an epic battle that I think it took me like 20 solid minutes of fighting non-stop, and my hands were so sore. But it was a good kind of sore, because I felt like it was the biggest challenge the game had to offer, and I overcame it, and even on the easiest difficulty, it still managed to be pretty darn hard. And you can also replay that quest almost whenever you want. So if you're like, oh man, now that it's over, what am I supposed to do? Well, thankfully you still have the option to replay it, and you can listen to the music whenever you want in the soundtrack player, which I love it when games have an in-game soundtrack. Now let's talk about the individual 3 big rewards that you get. So Link's flail is a pair of guardian legs that are connected by the blue Sheikah technology energy thing. I don't really know what to describe it, which more or less acts kind of like a whip for him. But its main gimmick is that it allows Link to copy the weapon of whatever enemy he hits with it if you press the trigger R button. So for example, this moblin is carrying a spear, so if I wanted to, I could copy the spear and then end up using it against the moblin. This doesn't always feel like it 100% replicates the weapon, more so of just that it makes Link look like he's holding a spear, but nevertheless it makes him more powerful, and if you use an enemy's weapon against it, it can often feel like the enemy will go down faster because it's caught off guard by having its own attacks use it against it. Now there's a meter below the special gauges that tells you how long it'll be before Link can copy another weapon, and it'll also tell you how much durability Link's current weapon has, because Breath of the Wild's durability system had to come in there somewhere, am I right? Overall, it's a pretty neat addition to Link's arsenal, and I think it's neat that they incorporated existing elements of Breath of the Wild into Link's moveset when he already has so many different options in the main game. Now, as far as Zelda, she gets the Master Cycle, which allows her to zoom across the map way too fast, and if you hold down the R trigger button, you even get the option to go so fast that the graphics become blurry. Thankfully, there's a temperature gauge to make sure you don't overuse it. So you can't just go zooming around all the time. I guess the game wants you to be sort of slow because it's hard enough to control the Master Cycle as it is. The game probably doesn't want you walking into any more invisible walls than you already are. I found myself having so much fun that I think I deliberately messed up on some of the battles just because I was like, I want to see Zelda on a motorcycle. That's so cool. Now finally, the Guardian. So the battle against the Guardian has its own battle music, which is more or less a more epic variation of the Guardian theme from Breath of the Wild, which already has a decent remix in this game, so I'm glad to see it have an even more fleshed out remix. The Guardian takes a bit of getting used to, as its attacks are really clumsy and it tends to be one of those really big characters like the Ganon battles in Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, but once you realize that if you hold down the R trigger and then press X, then you can start shooting the devastating beams at the enemies as long as the camera actually behaves itself. So it's a different kind of character. It's not particularly my favorite, but I definitely think it's really neat that I can experience what it's like to be on the other side of a Guardian attack. Especially if you're on a map where there's other Guardians that you're fighting, it's just really cool to see the two opponents pitted against each other. So now comes the part in the video where I tell you guys if it's worth it to buy this pack. I think it's probably worth it if you're the type of person that likes to work for your DLC as opposed to it just being handed to you after you pay for it, as you're definitely going to need to do a lot of grinding and a lot of side quests. However, I do think Zelda on the motorcycle was a good enough payoff for me. I thought the flail was decent, and even though I wasn't the biggest fan of controlling the Guardian, I also really like that perspective change to allow me to know what it's like to be the most dangerous enemy in Breath of the Wild. I also think that if you're the type of person that's a completionist and you want more to complete, that could potentially be a good reason. However, assuming the eShop doesn't let you buy this separately, you might want to hold off on waiting until the DLC is finalized, as we still have one more wave as of the time of this recording, and it's probably going to be a while. I think they said November 2021. So for now, I say if you're a completionist, you should probably have a blast. If you're not a completionist, you might want to wait for all of the DLC to come out to see if maybe this content will be enhanced by the improvements in the other mode. I also forgot to mention there's an apocalyptic difficulty, but some of these challenges are hard enough even on the easiest difficulty, so man, if you really need a challenge, you won't be lacking in one. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comments section, or if you have any concerns, comments, or critiques. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and Zelda on a motorcycle might be one of the coolest things I've seen in a warrior game. I wonder how the second DLC pack is going to top it. Bye for now.